Welcome back to English Corner with Profe Javi. This video is intended for 10th grade. Today, we're going to identify different examples of routines and recognize common mistakes when using adverbs of frequency. To begin with this, we are going to do a review of what adverbs of frequency are used for. Do you remember the adverbs that were mentioned in the challenge? An adverb of frequency is a concept that describes the frequency in which an action or activity takes place. The adverbs mentioned in the challenge were usually, often, and never. Let's see how they are used. Usually refers to an activity that is performed most of the time. That means 90%. Often refers to an activity that is performed less frequently. That means around 70% of the time. And never refers to an activity that is not performed at all. That means 0% of the time. Now that we have seen how adverbs of frequency are used, let's see some model answers of the challenge. Remember that for this challenge, you needed to write 5 different sentences using adverbs of frequency. Remember that for each sentence, you needed to take a picture of you performing the activity. Now, let's see the first example. I usually watch a Netflix series by 10 p.m. Number 2, I often bake cookies. Number 3, I never drink milk at breakfast. Now, it's time to check the most common mistakes that are made when using adverbs of frequency. Pay attention to the mistakes that are mentioned and then check your answers to the challenge. The most common mistake is the position of the adverb. The adverb always goes before the action or the activity that you are describing. Let's see an example with the correct position of the adverb. My niece usually sleeps by 1 p.m. Usually is the adverb of frequency, and sleeps is the activity or action. That means that usually always goes before sleeps. The second most common mistake is the definition of the adverb. Remember that usually refers to something that happens almost every time. That means 90% of the time. Often refers to something less common than usually, and that means 70% of the time. And never refers to something that does not happen. That means 0% of the time. Let's see 3 examples with the correct use of the adverbs. Number 1, they usually go to the farmer's market on Sundays. Number 2, she often plays the guitar in the afternoon. And number 3, we never go out after 10 p.m. Now that we have seen model answers to the challenge and the most common mistakes, let's look at the log entry that you need to do for the challenge. Remember that you have to complete this log entry after you finish the challenge. We have reached the end of the video, but you still have time to submit your answers to the challenge. Let's see in which ways you can do it. You can send an email to jballesteros@scc.cl. Remember that you must include your name and class. Or you can send a message through Instagram at profejavi.cc. Remember that you must include your name and class. Also, when sending a picture, select permanecer en el chat so I can see the pictures anytime.